Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. You know, a country, a lot like a person, is just stories. They're just the sum of their collected stories. That's the character of the nation. If I was to say which country is most likely to surrender without a fight, a whole bunch of people right now are thinking of the French. And they're all Americans. Because nowhere else in the world does France have that reputation. Just with Americans. Because in our stories, even though it isn't really deserved, that's the reputation that came through. And that shapes the character. These stories are being written constantly. They're being written today. The stories that make up the United States' character are being written right now. Had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and since then I've seen it repeatedly in internet talking points, basically when people are arguing. He told me that I need to be careful about what I said, and that the fact that I say it is proof that I don't really believe the country is headed towards fascism. Because if I believed it, I wouldn't say it, because, you know, if we are headed there, well, the government will find a way to arrest me. Wow. Okay. Then he went on to do the whole, and think of your kids. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I suppose that's true. I suppose that is true. If it gets out of hand, that could happen. I'm not sure that suggesting people imagine themselves being ripped away from their families unjustly is going to have the effect you think it's going to have in this particular case, because I mean, that's kind of why a lot of people are getting motivated. But it's a little unnerving because people are already starting to accept the actions of a fascist government. They're already moving towards, well, you better not say that or they'll get you, rather than the government is wrong for behaving in that way. It's unnerving. And that is the story that is being written. Right now, that's the story that's coming out. These little conversations, they become part of America's collection of stories. I'm certain that in the future, museums will have printouts of internet conversations that highlight the tone of the country. I'm sure that'll be a thing. You know, they have letters. If you go to museums today, you'll see collections of letters, and those are used to frame the context of things and to help write those stories so that we can explain later on what was happening in the country while major events were occurring. You know, we focus today on the political talking points of the pundits and the politicians, and we watch those debates. We don't watch the debates of the historians or the experts in political violence or the experts in political science. We don't watch those debates because there aren't any. There's a pretty broad consensus that we're headed down a pretty dark road. And that's the story we're writing. I think it's probably worth mentioning that right now, the Smithsonian is trying to get their hands on drawings made by children in camps down on the border. That's already become part of the story. What's happening there is part of America's history now. The question is, when it gets framed, how is it going to be framed? Is it going to be framed as an out-of-control administration and the people spoke up and squashed it? Or is there an out-of-control administration that was allowed to proceed because people were afraid? Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.